Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Divorce Coaching Podcast with myself, Tom Nash, Mr. Divorce Coach, and my illustrious colleague, Faye Petcher from Feel Positive Coaching. Hi, Faye.
Hi everyone.
Today, we've got yet another exciting guest for you. We have the lovely Nevine Coutry from, she's the founder and CEO of PlayDate, the UK's first specialist and focused single-parent dating app. So, hi, Nevine. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Faye. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Now, we met some time ago at we actually met in person, didn't we, at the divorce fair? And we kind of hooked up on Instagram and various different kind of social media platforms. One of the things that stood out to me about your product, about PlayDate, was it's a very, very focused and specialist area of the dating app world, shall we say. So, big, nice, open starting question. I can imagine the answer, but how did this all start? Where did this come from? What gave birth to this brainchild, as it were?
Well, firstly, I am a single parent, so I am the consumer. I do understand the challenges and kind of pitfalls that come with putting yourself out there as a single parent. So whether you're divorced, separated, there has been some kind of trauma or something a relationship that ended for whatever reason. So it really is difficult to put yourself out there, really. And I've always had this idea because I just found it really difficult to meet people. And yes, you can have your fun and you can, meet people randomly, which would be great. But I think, London, especially being a London resident, like people are so busy, you hardly have time to yourself to do anything, from work, whether, to kids, pick up, keeping the house tidy and clean and trying to maybe squeeze in a workout. So during lockdown actually was when I came up with the idea and pursued it. So prior to lockdown, I had a marketing agency and I was very much focused on doing tourism and events and all kinds of stuff. And then obviously all that stopped with the pandemic. So I said, this is a perfect opportunity to really explore this idea. And when I did my research, I realized that there's over 1,400 dating apps and sites in the UK. And there's a dating app, I swear, and there's a dating app for every kind of person you can think of. People with pets, people that like the outdoors, people that are into a bit more kinky things, people that like, same-sex relationships, all kinds of dating apps, but none of them catered solely to single parents. So I said, okay, there's something there. And I, kept looking at the numbers and I saw that there's under 3 million single parents in the UK. I said, okay, I'm going to try and get to those people. And I just came up with PlayDate. The name came to me quite naturally because, obviously PlayDate is a word that all parents use for their kids. But I thought, it's a nice play on words and everyone would understand it. Single parents would get it. So this is an adult PlayDate. It's PlayDate for adults. And that's how the idea came about.
That's actually, I'll tell you what, that actually surprises me. It doesn't surprise me that there was however many apps, thousands of apps, and to cater for all eventualities and tastes, etc., and interests. It surprises me that there wasn't already one before. I've got to be honest.
Yeah. There isn't. So it was there's a niche in that market for it, and now there's another actually dating app for single parents that's just launched. So there is room for more apps in that field, and I think it's great for single parents because as a single parent, you've got certain criteria, you don't have that much time on your hands, you've got kids, you have to sort out childcare. And one of the most important things that I did early on with PlayDate was we partnered up with Bubble, which is a childcare and nanny app.
All right.
Yeah, because even for me to go out with my friends, I'd be like, oh, I can't make this or I can't make that. I don't have a sitter or, my nanny can't stay longer hours or I've got to, it's too short notice. So within PlayDate, you can book at a discounted rate with Bubble, which is really, really great. And that way you don't have an excuse to say, I've got no one to look after the kids. You're going on that date. You're going on that date. And I think it's, we need to enjoy ourselves. I found that especially after my divorce, you get into this really dark place and you think, there's no light at the end of the tunnel, but you can find, meet the person of your dreams, or you can have an amazing relationship following a failed marriage or relationship or partnership. So I think it just gives people hope. And if you don't find someone, to end up with, you'll make connections with people in similar situations. And I think that's also great for, you're in the same shoes. Yeah. And it's for everyone, even widowed single parents, solo parents, it really caters to everyone. So it kind of takes off that kind of anxiety of, oh, what are they going to say? You know, if I say I've got kids, or, you know, how would they take it knowing, you know, that I'm widowed, that kind of thing. So it just takes off. It's like a short-listed list of eligible people to date.
Yeah.
I mean, can I ask you, Nevine? I mean, it's an amazing concept. And when I saw that you were in partnership with Bubble, it kind of blew my mind that you could actually, you know, get a date, book a babysitter on the same platform. Can I ask you what your experience of dating was? I'm imagining that obviously there was gaps, you weren't satisfied, which is why you kind of designed PlayDate in, you know, in its entirety.
Yeah, I mean, I did use a few dating apps myself, because I was forced to by my friends, although I was very anti-dating apps at all. I believe in chance encounters and that sort of thing. But after, I think it didn't take me that long actually to put myself out there. I did it. But then there's always that, you know, the moment I say I've got kids, you know, there's a lot of awkward moments of silence, or, you know, things just don't evolve from there. Because I think people just want to be, the people I've met on a date just wanted to be spontaneous, didn't want any strings attached, just wanted to have a good time, which is great. And that's why there's, you know, over 1,000 apps for people to do that on. But I think because this is so niche, and it's really for people looking for meaningful relationships. And if you're not in that space, then, you know, you're going to end up paying a lot of money to babysitters and nannies for useless dates, which I found to be a waste. Because for me, that's how I look at it. You know, I've spent all this money to go meet this person, and, you know, the moment I say I've got kids, they're acting a bit funny. So I haven't been very lucky with dating apps in the past. And also because I don't have a live-in nanny, I'm on my own, I don't have a very supportive ex-husband. So for me to actually have a social life or go out, it really needs to take a lot of planning and logistics. And then I just don't bother really, to be honest. You know, I've got free time, I, you know, get a massage or go to the hairdresser or do something to treat myself. And then which leaves me with very little time to be social or meet people.
I can see why a lot of people then would choose PlayDate, because even after all of that organising, your child can be sick at the last minute, and then everything falls apart. So I can see the benefits of actually using that as opposed to more well-known apps that are around there. So yeah, Tom, over to you. Sorry, I'm talking a lot today.
No, not at all. I was thinking about, because obviously the work that Faye and I do as coaching is to deal with the emotional, also the practical side of things, and a lot of that is also helping them rebuild confidences and their future life that they want to rebuild, which universally a lot of the time, doesn't it, Faye, comes down to companionship, getting back out there and dating. And like you say, sometimes people are a little bit, well, quite often, not just a little bit, but quite a lot. There's a lot of fear and anxieties about getting back out there again after so many years in a relationship. And like you say, there's apps out there if people are just looking to boost their confidence, go on a lot of dates, have a bit of fun, whatever. But I suppose a lot of the stuff that I also do with clients when they're starting to think about maybe who their future companion could be is getting their kind of checklist, as you just mentioned, about what is and isn't acceptable, what they do and don't want. So are they actually able to do that in the app as well? Because of course, I'm looking for someone who is divorced or separated with 2 kids or etc. How do they break down their criteria to make sure they can shrink down that gene pool, I suppose, of availability?
Yeah, well, we've paid really close attention to that, Tom, and within the app you can filter based on number of kids, age of kids as well, because I mean I've got a 9-year-old child. I'd love for him to have, you know, he's desperate for a brother or a sister, you know, he's always asking for a sibling. So it'd be great to be with someone who has, you know, kids in the similar age group. You can also filter by whether they're not open to having more children. I mean, I would love to have more children. So you would know, like, if you're meeting someone and, you know, he's definitely off having more kids, but I really would love more children, then for me, that's already, you know, off the list. You know, no, he doesn't want any more children. So you can filter by that. You can also filter obviously by area and also the type of single parenthood. So whether you're divorced, separated, widowed, solo parent, you know, whatever kind of single parent you are. So I think that's also very important, because I know the work that you do, Tom, really supports the notion of blended families. And I mean, that's for me, the end game for me is obviously you want a lot of users on the app, but for me to see a family actually end up becoming a blended family as a result, for me, that would be the greatest success of the app. Because, you know, I'm very much a, you know, independent woman, you know, single, but, you know, I provide all the love for my son, but at the end of the day, I think children do benefit a lot from, you know, having a father figure and a mother figure within the family unit. And I've seen that, with my friends. I've seen that in examples, you know, across the board. So I think it also has that benefit for me. It's not just about the dating part, but it's also about the kids could really benefit from it as well, depending on what age, whichever age group they're in.
Yeah, I love the fact that you can move them around. Because like you say, if you've got quite young children, someone who's maybe coming onto the app that's got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, if they didn't have that, they might end up meeting someone who could be great. But if they've got like 25-year-old kids, it's going to create maybe a slightly different form of a blended family. So no, I completely get that. That's really cool. Okay.
That's good. I was going to ask about, you know, obviously people put a lot of trust in your app because they pay for the service. It's very specific for single parents. I mean, how do you go across? Look, obviously, I'm thinking about catfishing. I was nearly catfished on some of the more well-known apps. Do you actually vet the people that are on your app to make sure they are who they say they are?
That's a great question. And I've actually just recently on our blog just written a piece about online dating security and how to date safely. Just because, you know, these cases are everywhere and anyone can get caught, you know, you could be a very smart, and I'm sure you're a very intelligent woman yourself, Faye. It can happen to anyone. It can happen to anyone. So firstly, we do vet them. So there's a user verification on the app. And by the way, it's not all paid. You can use it on a basic version, but there is obviously a premium service. But the vetting happens for all users. There's a facial recognition section of the registration process. So you have to take kind of a selfie with your phone. We make sure that it matches the photos you put up. But then there's only so much you can ask them to provide without actually breaching privacy laws. So it's a very gray area. But then we really urge, I mean, you can report people, you can block people. We also have an invisibility feature. So, and that actually works really well for if you don't want your exes to see you on the app, which I would love to do, which I would probably use. So you can put in, you know, if you've got someone's email or contact details, you can use the invisibility feature to make sure they never see anything you put up on your profile. And I think that users have to be really, you know, careful as well. You can't ask people to, you know, put in their driver's license or their, you know, copy of their passport. And even if they do, you know, that could be also forged, or, you know, there's many ways around it. So we've got like kind of a top 8 tips of, you know, how to be safe online. Obviously, I think it's completely okay when you're on a first date to ask to see some ID. I think that's completely fine. You can both exchange IDs. You can ask to see pictures of their kids, because sometimes, you know, they could be a single parent, but you don't know what that relationship is like. Maybe, you know, there's a restraining order, or maybe, you know, they're not allowed, you know, there's been abuse there, or there's been some negativity there. So I think it's really important, and it's completely fine on a first date to ask those questions. And just to be really careful. And obviously, if anyone asks for money, that's a big red flag.
I was thinking about a recent Netflix series that I watched.
And I think that's a big red flag. So I mean, I'm happy to put up the link to the blog after we're done here. But I think it's really, really useful. And at the end, it's down to the user's responsibility. There's only so much we can do to verify people without, you know, really breaching you know, the law or getting into too much details, because then it also pushes people off the app if you ask for too much information as well. So there's a fine line there. But I think it's really, really important for people to be responsible, cautious, and not to be afraid to ask those questions on a first date, and look out and always believe your gut. That's follow your gut. I think that's really, really important.
Definitely, that's really reassuring. We were talking before we started recording about the do's and don'ts of first dates. You know, when do you start talking about the ex? When do you start talking about your health and all of that? I mean, I've got tons of stories, but I'm not going to bore you all with those. I think Tom said them thousands of times. But what are your top do's and don'ts on a first date?
I think do be, I just said, like very open with the questions that you ask. I think do set what you want from a relationship. Just because, you know, you don't want to be wasting time. I think when you're a single parent, you don't really have that time to, you know, beat around the bush and go on a first and second date before you really get to the bottom of what you both want, and to just be open and honest about that. But obviously don't share I wouldn't share for example, my personal phone number on a first date. I wouldn't give my address on a first date, those kind of things. Obviously, personal details I wouldn't give, but I would give information about, you know, my family situation and what I want out of a relationship.
So tell us a little bit more about how the app operates then, because of course, for any of our audience that are watching this, this app is obviously for anyone that is about to dip a toe in the dating pool, as it were, or is currently get back into, or wants to carry on with and get focused on meeting another single parent. So talk us about a bit of the functionality. Once they've passed all their verification, they've uploaded their photos, created a profile, like I imagine you would on any other kind of app or platform. So how do they operate and function through that? Once they've set everything, how does it operate? Is there like any messaging thing, so you don't have to give out your number and that kind of stuff?
So there's a messaging within the app, of course. So there's a message function within the app, and whether you're a premium or basic member, you can, if you're a premium member, you can, send audio notes and video notes and send pictures and videos and all that. So it works pretty much as any messaging platform. One of the features that I really actually like about PlayDate is the fact that it's not like on Tinder or other apps where you swipe left or right. Because for me, I find that very like humiliating, like a sense of rejection. Oh, they didn't like me. So it works a bit more like Facebook in the sense of it's a chat request. So you request to chat with someone, they can accept or reject it, and it kind of removes that humiliation bit out of the swiping. So there's no swiping, it's a chat request. And once they've accepted, you can chat normally within the chat function. And then there's also a match function. So they match. So there's a page where you get all the users that have the similar filters that are matching according to the filters you've set. So kind of age, location, single parent status, number of kids, whether they're open to having more children, etc. And also hobbies, likes and interests, and so on. So it works pretty much the same way as any dating app. It just doesn't have that swipe left or right.
So do people use it, I suppose, with people's profiles, their pictures and stuff like that? Because it's very much about single parents, so people that are looking for obviously another parent, as we've kind of already discussed, and maybe looking at a blended family. Are people a little bit more open and forthcoming with their divorce story, or in terms of I've been divorced for 5 years, I've got 3 kids, blah blah blah, etc. So are people kind of more forthcoming as they would be, as opposed to, let's say, on another mainstream dating app where maybe they're just looking for it?
Yeah, they very much are, which makes me really happy that they feel they're in a safe space. And you'll be surprised that most of the users actually put up pictures of themselves with their kids, which is something I probably would never do on a normal dating site. Yeah. So I think it's, them with their kids, really putting it out there that their parents, talking about their, in their profile, they would say, divorced for X number of years or separated for X number of years, not really ready, but giving this a try, that kind of thing. And I think it's really lovely to see, single parents put themselves out there, in that way. So yes, they do. You won't find any kind of topless with their pecs out, on a beach somewhere. No,
I won't start my profile then.
You can have a look, Tom. You can have a look.
No, my girlfriend will kill me.
For research purposes only.
So when we were talking, Faye was asking around kind of your top tips a minute ago. But what you kind of touched on some of them from a security perspective of going on the app, but do you also have any advice in terms of red flags on the date as well, or when you're starting to talk to someone in the messages as well? Because I've a lot of different clients with a lot of different experiences that have had their own version of red flags when it's come to internet dating, app-based dating, etc., even just in the messaging phase. So, I mean, what kind of things would you warn people to look out for?
Oh, that's a tough one, because it really depends on, what you're looking for, and who you are as a person. But I think if they avoid certain questions, or if they don't answer questions that are, kind of what's your relationship like with your kids, for example? And if you find them, not really giving a direct answer, that kind of thing, if they avoid answering some kind of personal questions, things like that. If they avoid going on a date, if you've been messaging for a few weeks and you put out having, meeting up, and they kind of make the date quite difficult to arrange, then something's off. But I think you just have to, just really be cautious of what people are saying. And again, there's 1,000 apps out there. There's a reason why they're on PlayDate. If they wanted to, fool around or mess around, there's so many apps for them to do that on. And I think because they're parents, people are just slightly a bit more, it makes them slightly a bit more responsible. You'd hope. But yes, I think that's kind of what you need to look out for.
Yeah. Faye, I know you had some more questions.
I have. I mean, I could go on with this really, and I suppose I'm thinking about, you know, when you're talking about, you know, people that are just kind of dipping their toe in the water, and everyone has their own opinion of when is it right to date after a relationship or marriage breakdown. You know, when you've got children in the mix, it's busy, isn't it? And you know, I know someone who actually I went on a date with them. They'd literally broken up with their wife the week before. And I'm just wondering your opinion, you know, especially when you've got children of varying ages, when do you think is the right time to date? Do you think, you know, it's a very personal thing and people will know? And I think it's probably a little bit about being honest with the person you're on the date with, isn't it? And at what stage you're at.
Yeah, it's also a tricky one. It's very there's two things here. There's when is it right time to date, and when is it the right time to introduce the kids? I think they're two very important and very different things to think about. I mean, for me personally, I was checked out of my marriage probably 2 years before the divorce. So it was already 2 years of me being emotionally detached from the relationship and actually ready to let that go. So I started dating probably 5-6 months after divorce, which might seem too soon, but for me it was like, you know, 2.5 years being emotionally detached from a person. So that I kind of had left that behind me. So physically we were divorced 6 months, but I was divorced emotionally for 2.5 years. So that's also something to keep in mind, because someone might have just been divorced, but they might have already been checked out for a very, very long time, and they are ready to dip their toes back into the dating world. Obviously, there's the rebound issue. So some people might just throw themselves into there just so that, because some people cannot be alone. And I've met many people that, you know, they have to be dating someone, or they have to be in a relationship, or else they just cannot function. And that for me is a red flag if they're in that situation. So you can really tell from, you know, how the person speaks about the relationship. If they're still if you can tell they're still very much, you know, heartbroken, still in that space, then, you know, that's probably not the right time to pursue a relationship. And then with the kids bit, I think Tom can answer that question as to when is the right time to introduce the children, because it is a tricky one to answer.
Yeah, no, much the same as you were just saying, because there's so many different moving parts, isn't there? So, I mean, I think myself and my partner, we introduced the kids about, again, I think it's about 6 months after. 2 of them had already met previously before we were an item, when we were just friends, on like a take your kid to work day, because we commuted on the same trade. So that her youngest and my eldest had already met before, so they were already kind of like friends, if you like. And then when we did it 6 months later, and we actually put them all together, we actually went away somewhere. It was a festival, and I went with my 2, and we had our own tent, and my partner was with her 2 and had her own tent. We just spent the weekend as friends, and then the more and more they wanted to spend time together, and they wanted to be around each other, to the point where actually we could say, right, well, actually we want to be a couple as well. But again, that's like I said, that was 6 months. But again, it's unique for some people. It's dependent on the ages of their children. If it's really early days, it's really, really raw, you're still going through legal processes, if there's any bitterness and contentiousness and things like that, then even maybe if you've met someone on PlayDate, it might not immediately be right, well, just because I've met them on PlayDate and therefore they want to have a blended family, we should all integrate. And you've still got to work the uniqueness of your situation, and consider all of the children's approach to it as well.
I think for me as well, I mean, for me, if someone, one of my do's and don'ts, or kind of my checklist, is they have to get along with my kids. You know, and the kids, and everyone has to get along, obviously. So if my son, it's a bit like, I think, dogs or pets, like if they don't like you, you can tell they don't like a person. And my son is very much the same. He's very intuitive, and I'm sure most kids are. And for me, if they don't get along, or if he doesn't like this potential person, then I'm not, you know, I wouldn't want to pursue it. So I think it's also important not to leave it too late, because, you know, if they end up, you know, hating each other or not getting along at all. And also it's important to see the way they treat your children as well. You know, to see how they get along with them, how they treat them, because again, parenting styles are, you know, differ, right? And you have to make sure that there's some kind of cohesion with the way you look at parenting and how you raise children and so on. So I think not leaving it too long, but I again, not to be in a situation where, you know, you're introducing your kids to someone new every, you know, few weeks, you know, that wouldn't be right. But yes, I think in the context of, you know, this is a friend, or you meet in a public place with a lot of people and friends, and, you know, it's kind of this is mommy's friend or this is daddy's friend. I think in that context, you know, it's probably the right way to go, and see how everyone gets on.
And I'm thinking as well the fact that, you know, you are for single parents, so the people on your site have got children. There's that commonality there. So when you're meeting someone for the first time on a date, you can actually talk about your kids.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's kind of given, isn't it? So I'm kind of guessing that there's this kind of reassuring safety of, I'm meeting with someone who's also got kids. We're in the same boat. We know what the struggles are. We know what this is like.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, you're absolutely right. The amount of clients where I've had that have gone on to, let's say, a more generic dating app that have said, oh, when do I tell him or her that I've got 3 kids?
Yeah.
They're now fearful of it because they don't want that person to go running a mile because they're now single. And like you say, getting out there with like-minded people that are prepared for that. And actually, like you just said, Faye, that first date, actually coming to it with intrigue and interest. So tell me about your kids. Like, how old are they? My kids intuitive. How your kids know? I think helps kind of reduce that question mark and that concern for a lot of people.
And it also really, it kind of takes off the pressure of, you know, what if this doesn't work out, or what if they don't like me? It's fine, you know, you've made a friend, or you've spoken to someone in your same shoes and got to spoke about your kids. You know, it's not like a lost date. For me, it's all learnings. You know, it's none of them are kind of failed dates, unless something goes awfully wrong. But yeah, I mean, it kind of takes that pressure off, which I think is also important.
Yeah. Okay. We've answered all of my questions. What about you, Faye?
I've got one more, which I'm buzzing to know. That actually, have you got any success stories? I know you know the app isn't that old, but have you had anyone that's actually found love using your app?
Not yet, because it's only been a year since we've launched. But everyone is still on the app, so we've got very few people that have actually left the app. So I'm guessing either they're getting along, they've, you know, in the process of finding someone, or they're happy just, you know, exploring their options. But yes,
I suppose it's maybe one of those things like you might never know. It might be like years later, and then you might be like, you'll read a story in like Closer magazine or something, and someone says, "Oh well, we met on this app." And you're like, "Oh, it might be the thing you never get the feedback on."
We can ask, you know, the users, you know, has anyone found love? But, you know, some people might not want to really share it, or they're in the process. But yes, I mean, hopefully soon we'll have a success story of people finding love on the app.
And like you said, any of the dates that your people go on, they're not going to be wasted. You might get a friend, you might decide to meet up with your children as new friends. And that to me is amazing, because like you're saying, you haven't lost anything. You'll probably gain so much more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe pick up yourself a free babysitter.
Maybe share a babysitter. Some people actually said that, you know, what if we can share a babysitter, you know? So yeah, it's good. It's good. It's exciting, and, you know, we're still new, and hopefully we get more and more users, more single parents use it.
Brilliant. So just to check from a technical point of view, the app is usable on iPhone, Android, everything, every conceivable platform of technology.
Platform, any device. It's an app, obviously, so it's on the App Store, so on Google Play and Apple Store. And it's free to download and use. There is obviously a paid membership, but you can use it without paying anything. So yeah, it's good.
Okay.
If you know any single parents, please do pass it on.
Do you know what? No word of a lie. I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here. There's a lady that I've been working with for a little while, who I think this is absolutely perfect and ideal for. Because like we were saying earlier, when Faye and I were working with a client trying to help rebuild those confidences and their future you, or future them, as it were, it's usually about trying to help them. Well, where else are you able to meet new people, make new connections? Like we were just saying, that doesn't have to be for. PlayDate doesn't have to be for a romantic relationship. It can be for friendship and connection, local support, community, for the kids' friends as well. And already my mind, do you know what, lawyers say this to me all the time as well, and I know they say it with you as well, Faye. Either the lawyers that I partner with, or indeed clients that I work with, where people always say like, I wish I never need your services, or where were you 5 years ago? And I'm thinking about all those people in the last few years that I've worked with, that had I have known, I could have gone, right, this is the app for you, rather than saying, go and use a generic one and get back out there and dip your toe in the water, because I know what their I know what their focus is. I know where they want to be. I know they want to focus on finding someone new with kids a similar age, like we've all been talking about. So yeah, no, I think it's really, really useful, and I'm already, my brain's going of who to send it to.
Thank you. And it's also a safe space for, I mean, I don't know about, I can't speak for everyone, but if you have been through a divorce or separation, you're also kind of, maybe your confidence isn't there, you know, you're not feeling really good about yourself, and it's really hard to put yourself out there. So I think with an app like PlayDate, it's, you know, it's you kind of limit that kind of stress of having to meet someone and, you know, they make you feel awful about yourself, or, you know, it's, everyone's very, I think it's a nice community of users that are very mindful to people's situation, and it's just a very honest, safe place.
Love that. That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry if I spoke too much.
No, not at all. It's it's actually better that you do speak more than to us, which is relevant. So no, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a lovely rest of your day.
You too. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.